Reflect on your dogma and see that I am God.
Perception is reality. Perspective shapes the world around you. I'm JJ Weinberg, and this is my perspective.
Greetings and salutations. My name is JJ Weinberg. I'm an artist, an activist, an alchemist, a radio show host, and I am none of these things. I want to start by thanking everyone here at WVLP and, of course, Voga, Barnes, and Denny, the underwriters for Perspective. Okay, the last few weeks, we've been on a ride. This piece that I created, if you haven't listened to the last couple of episodes, I might be referring back to things from this I'm Your Huckleberry Finn multimedia etherealization triptych that you won't know unless you go back and check out these episodes. But it's a journey of serendipity. My book, Serendipity According to Francis, that's the first book that I ever wrote in 2022. It's still not done, but it's done. It's done in the sense that the dedication was for my dog, Francis. She passed in 2022. I always said I wanted to write a book. And about 3 or 4 days after processing, 5 days after processing things, I started to write therapeutically, just to kind of get some of the stuff on the page, to kind of get things out. I'm a writer. I'm a musician. I'm a creative. So it's like this was a way for me to start exploring the depth to which my dog, my God, and we get into that, of course, touched my life. To follow the red string of Serendipity, the autobiography of an alchemist, a mystical memoir of a man and his dog, Francis was so important, not just to me, but to others. I wanted to make sure and use that opportunity. So what I did is I tied every day to writing at least one page for this book. I'd heard someone, I think it might have been Seth Godin, say, people are worried about writing a book. They say they can't write a book. It's too daunting of a task. It's because you're thinking about writing a book. He said, can you write a page a day? Oh, yeah, anybody can write a page a day. Well, if you can write a page a day and you write for 365 days, then you have a book. I was like, oh, man. I'd thought about that and carried it along with me for many years. But then when Francis passed, I was writing as therapy. I realized that because of my love for my dog, because of my appreciation and my gratitude for the ways that she touched my life and how important that I felt her spirit was, that if I, dedicated, if I made an oath to write at least a page a day, that I would do that work. And so that started in January of 2022. In the sense that it's complete, I wrote every page. I wrote every day at least one page. Some days I wrote 10 pages. Some days it would be the 11th hour, literally. I realized I hadn't written a page yet. I had a headache. I wasn't feeling well, but it didn't matter. I was going to show up to at least write that one page. I wrote it over 7 different journals by hand. And so when I say it's done, all of those journals are filled, but I need to get them typed out. And so what I'm doing now is I've been in the process. It's slow because I don't do it very often. And now I'm doing this radio show. But what I've been doing when I get to it is I record my audio notes, or I record basically audio notes to make it into an audio book. And then I'll use the audio to transpose it into the actual typed out book, Serendipity According to Francis. But through that long journey in 2022, I would have been writing. I don't even know. I haven't gotten through the full book again yet myself, of course, reading it and recording it. But I would have been talking about this project that I was working on, the God panels. Val Kilmer, my God tag. And of course I would, because it's about serendipity. And serendipity is what made this talisman, this dog tag, this God tag that hangs from my neck. And serendipity had it orchestrated that it would land on a Good Friday in 2024. After years of work, serendipitously, I should have planned it that way, but it was the challenges and the adversity that I was facing in trying to work through the meaning of Val Kilmer's God panels and him not being able to work on it physically because he wasn't well. So all of that orchestrated for it to fall on that date. So I left the last episode here of Perspective talking about the Soul's Code, James Hillman. Alchemy, this idea that we transmute our base experience into something more refined. It's what I was writing about with my Pomeranian best friend, Francis. And these dreams that I've had over years, and how the work was informed by dreams from 25, 26 years ago. And this moment when I skipped class at the American Academy of Art, and I was sitting in the window at Van Buren and Wabash, and I caught this event. I've ended up calling it the Jupiter effect. But what's really crazy is I've been talking to my friend, one of my friends, he was in my band, and we've been talking about the conflicts kind of in the Middle East, some of the stuff with Iran, some of the stuff with Israel. And I have a song and lyrics that I wrote in 2008 that sound like I could be writing them right now, but I'm talking to him about, the details of religion, of history, and things that we oftentimes just sweep over in big brushstrokes, and we have to be careful because propaganda loves to feed on big brushstrokes. So I was looking for the finishing of the lyrics to this song to share with them. So I'm kind of going through all these old files trying to find it. And I couldn't find the song because I have almost all the lyrics except for the very end. But as I was looking around and going through my notes, I stumbled upon this. I can't believe that I have it. If you haven't heard it back in the last couple episodes, I'll give it to you again right now, really in its most raw format, because I have the date right on the end of this writing. But it says, "Man, I can't believe how that icicle fell from about 40 stories up yesterday. It was just about as tall as me. It shattered everywhere, only to eventually melt without a trace. It just missed that dude by 10 seconds. It doesn't seem long. The traffic light lasts 44 seconds. I remember counting it. Maybe that traffic light saved 5 lives. It seems like forever when you're counting. 10 seconds doesn't seem long in the scope of a person's life. But when you know something's going to happen at the end of that 10 seconds, it could last forever. We take for granted the seconds passing each day. Yet if this guy's schedule had changed by 10 seconds, he would have been dead. I have to think about this more, but all I know now is that I'm glad God, or my dog, the universe, however you want to put it, had me witness that spectacular event. I've talked about this, the Jupiter effect. I've talked about it on stage, in presentations, talking about gratitude. I've talked about it here, obviously the past few episodes and other times. Through my whole life, that one event changed me just to see it happen right in front of my eyes. Later on that night, the reason why I call it the Jupiter effect, I was working on a piece of art for class. I talked about this the last couple episodes. And I heard in the background basically the notion that if Jupiter were like the equivalent of a centimeter out of its position. It wasn't saying exactly a centimeter. But during the Big Bang, if Jupiter were out of position, that the debris, the asteroids that are in its rings are caught in its massive gravity. But if it were just a little bit out of place, then life on Earth wouldn't have been possible, because that debris would have crashed into Earth, asteroids creating chaos such that the atmosphere would never be able to form. And so I heard that in the background as I'm working on the Discovery Channel. I hear this happening as I'm working on a piece of art for class. And it's like that happened on the same day that I saw that icicle, the gravity of time, which is what serendipity is. The gravity of time pulled that guy from being impaled by a 4.5, 5 foot icicle hurtling down like a missile. And the crazy part is, again, I've been talking about that here recently, looking for this lyric to share with my friend. I end up stumbling on the notes from the day after it happened. Insane. The date, February 24th, 1998. It takes me back to a talk that I did at Valparaiso University, where I was going over this same thing, this Discovery Channel on at home, some quintessential background noise. And I'm overhearing the narrator talking about Jupiter's gravity acting as a shield, pulling in the asteroids that would have otherwise smashed into Earth. So it was a perfect mirror of the event, the icicle that I saw on Van Buren Street. We wouldn't exist without Jupiter. Yet at the same time, Jupiter wouldn't have its name if we weren't there to appreciate it, to name it, like Bastion in the Neverending Story. So we have this symbiotic relationship with Jupiter. That's where I say serendipity is my psychedelic, and I often reference myself as a wizard of intentional serendipity. My art, my creativity, when I'm creating this piece with the God panel, the God tag, I'm your Huckleberry Finn, all of it has to somehow seep into the work. I saw, though, with that icicle, love being expressed in science, the science of synchronicity. So I believe, and we've talked about this before, that gratitude precedes success and in equal proportion. If you're not familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, he's a guy who will talk about gratitude all the time. And Gary, I've heard him say so many times that the basis for his gratitude is in the numbers. He calls it 400 trillion to 1 and says that that's the odds of you existing. But I was reading around one day, I stumbled on this infograph. I don't remember what magazine it was in, so I started digging in a little bit deeper, but it's far more miraculous than 400 trillion to 1. We can't even conceive of 400 trillion to 1, the odds, but the odds are even higher. So the odds of your individual existence, like your parents meeting, their parents meeting, and their parents meeting, and again, this icicle that could fall and kill any one of them at any time, or the train or the stoplight that catches you, all of the different nuances. The actual odds of your individual existence is 1 in 10 with 2,685,500 zeros behind it. So the article said that that's the probability of 2 million people, and each of those 2 million people have a trillion-sided dice. So the dice actually has a trillion sides. 2 million people with a trillion-sided dice getting together and all rolling the same number simultaneously, all at the same time. That's the odds of you existing as an individual with your parents and your lineage. And it's a miracle. That makes you a miracle. And I'm not saying it in the like tree-hugging, Pollyannish, rainbow and puppy dog aspect. I'm just saying that you have to look at the basis for your individual experience, if we can open up to that. Again, that's why I say serendipity is my psychedelic. If you don't know, I've never had a drop of alcohol in my life. I've never done any drugs in my life. But serendipity has acted as my drug, keeping my mind open to those things. I was listening to a podcast just a couple of days ago, and I caught this. It was really wild. It was Ezra Klein and Michael Pollan, and he was saying something about people using, drugs to get to these elevated states. And he went on to say that children are more conscious because a lot of times as we get older, we prune our consciousness down into these goal-oriented spotlight thoughts. And I'm like, man, this is so wild because it's the exact opposite of what I do. My light is not a spotlight. I keep it wide open. Then he goes on to say that spotlight consciousness versus lantern consciousness is the way children look at the world. They don't spotlight that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a lantern. Psychedelic returns us to the lantern is what he's saying, that's why these drugs are sometimes being used by people exploring. But it's why I've just kept my lantern open. I've not spotlighted these things. And so I'm tripping all the time. Again, you look at this painting I have, Seduction of the Rabbit, and you say, well, what does it mean? It means everything I've said in the last 16 minutes here. It means everything I've said in the last 16 years, in the last 46 years. Well, I didn't speak as I was 1 year old, I don't think. But anyway, when I did my screening for I'm Your Huckleberry Finn, Good Friday 2024, at Vickers Theater in Three Oaks, Michigan, one of the stories I told was about Anthony Hopkins and the girl from Petrovka. It's 1973. Anthony Hopkins was getting ready for this role in this film, The Girl from Petrovka. And it was an adaptation of a novel George Pfeiffer had written, and he's looking all over London bookstores for a copy of the book. And they're telling him it's out of print. And so he's looking all over. All day he's looking. He feels defeated. He's like, all right, I don't know what else to do. I've looked everywhere. He gets on the subway going home. And in this crazy twist of fate, he looks on the seat next to him. And it's the book. The novel he just spent all of his day, hours and hours looking for this book. It's sitting on the seat next to him in the subway. That would be crazy enough, but that's not where it ends. Months later, as they're shooting, he's talking to the author and he's telling him this crazy story. Well, the author said that his copy of the book got lost. And I think it comes out later that his thief had stolen some stuff and then dumped the book randomly. So months later, Anthony Hopkins finds out that the book that he found after looking all day, randomly he finds it on the subway, was actually the author's very own copy that had been lost. So that was one of the stories I told. And then I told another story about the Golden Scarab, Carl Jung. Again, rewind back to 1998, around the same time when I saw this icicle fall, probably 1997, actually. It had to have been because it was right as I was getting out of school. I was still a senior in high school, and the American Academy of Art had an open house. Now, I told my mom when I was 10 years old, Mom, I'm going to the American Academy of Art. When I graduate, she said, great. So that was always cultivated in me, that aspiration. And I go to this open house day, and in it, there was a little questionnaire between classes. We had it was a model day of the way the classes work. We had a life drawing and a still life. fundamentals kind of course. In between those two classes, there was this intake kind of seminar, and there was a question. We had to fill out this form. And I remember on the form, the question came across, are you an introvert or an extrovert? I sat there and I looked at it for a second, and I checked extrovert. Now, if you ask anybody that knew me or knew of me, I guess, in high school, it was the complete opposite. I was a total introvert. I would stay home and paint and draw. I'm not rebelling. I'm not drinking. I'm not smoking. I don't think I got my license until I was 19. I think I said that in the last episode. So when I saw that question come across, I knew I wanted something different. I was like, I'm going to change that, because at home, I like to put on a show. I like to, my mom, years and years and years ago, my mom was an aerobics instructor, and she had this real kind of production that she would do. And I was her little DJ, and I would get up and dance on the stage and stuff when I was a kid. I was in tap dance when I was a little boy. So I was like, I had this idea that I might want to perform, and then I might want to be more gregarious and out there. And so I checked extrovert. And then right after that, I went up to who is my best friend now, Tony. I'm the godfather to his boys, Miles and Desi. And if I didn't have that question in front of me, I might not have done this. I might not have went and asked Tony, hey, you want to go grab a bite to eat? Because I was the shy guy. I didn't just go out and do that. And Tony is absolutely like a gentle giant. He's quiet as a mouse. He never would have approached me in that capacity. And then he ends up becoming my best friend. It leads us to music. The music leads me to Clinton, who's one of my best friends now, and he works with me with art. And all of these different things, it leads me back to my visual art, which leads me to my website that says JJ Weinberg is Mark Twain with a paintbrush. And if you want to know who that quote came from, the art critic, you'll have to listen to, I think it's the last episode. You'll get to hear where that came from. But all of that came from that one question. And so in some capacity, I was on this journey from a question that was posed to me by Carl Jung. Now, he didn't ask me, and it wasn't like the people were thinking of Carl Jung probably when they wrote it on the survey, but Carl Jung coined the term introvert and extrovert. He also coined the term synchronicity, which, as synchronicity has it, has been one of my lifelong passions. Serendipity is the way I articulate it. Synchronicity, it's, the same thing. It's the magic. It's the way that all of these meaningful coincidences happen in our lives. But as I was doing more and more work for this I'm Your Huckleberry Finn piece, I was digging back into some of my things like the Soul's Code and Carl Jung and all these different things over the course of my life. And then I stumbled upon this story that I'd never heard about Carl Jung and the Golden Scarab. And then I ended up sharing it, of course, at the screening for my piece, I'm Your Huckleberry Finn, the multimedia etherealization triptych. If you want to see that, actually, you can go on my website, jjweinberg.com/huckfinn. It's spelled with one N, signifying the end. But anyway, a young woman of high education and serious demeanor. This is in quotes because that was right out of Carl Jung's notebooks. She was being treated by Jung, and she's on this quest for some psychological change. But it's doomed from the beginning because Carl Jung can't get her to soften this shell that she has of pure rationalism. She's really a step ahead of him every time, he would say. So he tried to stay attentive and be there. He's trying to talk to her about synchronicity, about the magic in life. And he's hoping that something unexpected, something irrational could turn up. And so during one of the sessions, she's describing a dream that she had about this piece of jewelry in the shape of a golden scarab. And so she's telling him about this dream, this beautiful golden scarab. And then all of a sudden, he hears this tap, 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 tap on the window as they're in the middle of the session. So Jung goes over to the window, and in a climate where it shouldn't have been, and definitely at the time of in a time of year where it shouldn't have been, he sees this scarab beetle. Contrary to its usual habits, it had evidently felt an urge to get into a dark room at that particular moment. That's one of the quotes from Jung's notes. For no reason whatsoever, this scarab, he opens the window and he realized this beetle, it's a golden scarab. It's almost identical to what the woman is describing from her dream. And so he says, "Here is your scarab." And he handed her a link between her dream image and the external world. Absolutely fascinating. It's just a miraculous trifecta. You know, you have the scarab beetle coming to Jung's window, which it shouldn't have been there, both because it shouldn't have been trying to get inside, number one. Number two, the climate and the area, it shouldn't have been there. The patient telling him about this scarab jewelry in the dream, and Jung needing something irrational and unexpected to happen. And it just converges. And Jung is calling it synchronicity, serendipity. So the patient then is now amazed, like looking at Jung like, I say, I'm a wizard of intentional serendipity. She's looking at him like he's a magician to be able to produce this beetle. It drops her defenses, her shell is shattered, and she can respond with a more loose openness beyond the hyper-rational thinking that she had. And of course, then we can look at just the ideas of what a scarab means symbolically. Egyptians, for the Egyptians, the meaning of a scarab was death and transformation. So it's like, here's this archetype appearing for her. So I'm talking about our dream state, where we become lucid in our dream state, things change by our will. Can we become lucid in waking life? I've talked about these dreams changing my life, that these paintings that I saw, that I really feel like I saw these paintings in a dream 24 years before I made them. If you go back a couple episodes, you hear me talk about it. Essentially, I had a dream. I was jealous when I woke up because the paintings were so amazing. And then I realized, wait a second, those were my paintings. They didn't exist outside of my dream. But I'm talking about Carl Jung. I'm contemplating Jung and thinking about Val and these God panels, about Mark Twain being his last speaking role, about how I got connected to Val because I have a quote on my website that says J.J. Weinberg is Mark Twain with a paintbrush, that I would be in Val's studio in 2021, seeing his God panels, helping create his first digital asset on the blockchain, designing it. And then later in 2024, fast forward, after I did my screening in Three Oaks, Michigan, I do a screening at a gallery in LA. And that night, I meet this guy and I'm telling him all about it. I'm telling him about the golden scarab. I'm talking to him about Anthony Hopkins, about serendipity. If you go back in my last episode, I'm talking about Huckleberry, the dog in the woods, and serendipity and the dream state. All of these things, all the inspirations and channels, how I'd seen my God tag, the dog tag on my neck, how I saw it in a dream. the allegory of dreams, and deeply leaning into Carl Jung. So all of that led me, that question, are you an introvert or an extrovert, to Val's studio in 2021. Carl Jung asked it to me almost the same way he handed that lady a golden scarab. There's a circumpunct on the dog tag. Right in the middle of the circle is a dot. Again, Carl Jung uses this symbol, the monad, the I am. I am shapes your reality. Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass. That goes back to the last episode. You'd have to listen to it. But I had a dream about this 3D printing of the stencils because Val couldn't work on the canvas. So that ends up deepening the metaphor about beginning in spirit, becoming flesh, and returning to spirit. Beginning digitally, becoming physical, and then returning to the digital. That's the allegory for this piece. Again, jjweinberg.com/HuckFin, 1N. It's a short film. All of these art, facts, talismans, pieces, they're produced by the imagination. The digital became physical and then returns to the digital fin at the end. So I'm telling him about the circumpunct. I saw it in the sky for the first time in my book, 2022, writing in honor of my dog. I see the circumpunct hanging in the sky, and I knew it was some sort of linguistic conversational piece to me in the universe. And then it winds up falling into place. But as I'm talking to this guy, I'm telling him all this stuff, like we're doing this right now. He's like astounded. He says, wow, this is incredible. And I'm like, well, no, thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, but he's like, no, like, again, the coincidences, the meta coincidence here, the meta serendipity, magic synchronicity on steroids of this whole thing. Because I'm meeting this guy in LA at this screening, and he says to me, I was on the team that helped Val produce and write his Mark Twain play. I'm like, whoa, that's phenomenal. Like, this is great. He's like, no, he's like, I was a part of that team. And he's like, this is going to freak you out. But we were working with Val to help pull out the genius of this production through Jungian dream analysis. That's how they approached this entire production for his Mark Twain. And Mark Twain, my piece, since you're not looking at it right now, and if you haven't seen it yet, is basically Val as a young man. You see him materialize in this piece, me time-lapsing his drawing digitally. And then he transforms into Doc Holliday, and then he transforms into Mark Twain. And through all of it, you're seeing also the 3D printing and the production of all these things, these elements that have to come from the digital sphere, the digital realm, and become physical. The canvases get, or the drawings get printed on canvas, and then the stencil gets printed after I'd traced it and cut it out and carved it out. It gets printed, and then I spray paint through that, and then you see it all come off, and it all fades back into pure light. But this guy's telling me that the way that they were deeply involved in Jungian dream analysis for this production. The play, too, is called Citizen Twain. And in it, he's exploring the wit of Mark Twain, but it's mixed with this stream of consciousness monologue and a take on Mary Baker Eddy, who Mary Baker Eddy also had an influence in my life. Christian Science is the book that Mary Baker Eddy wrote. Christian scientists, they get a bad rap, but there's some fascinating ideas in Christian Science. And all of that kind of rolls back to probably this quote where Val says, and I talked about this in the previous episodes, I don't believe in death. And when I'm asking the question, with these three masks that Val is wearing, he's wearing the mask of himself as a young man, his persona, again, still a mask. We wear masks, but the actor's role is greater than the sum of his parts. The mask that he wears when he becomes Doc Holliday, and of course, the mask that he wears as Mark Twain. But through the piece, I'm asking, whose I is this? Capital I. But also, whose I is this? EYE. If eyes are the windows to the soul, who's behind the mask? Who's behind your mask? You play roles. We all play roles in life. The beginning of the show, I say I'm all of these things and I am none of these things, because the things that I say I am, when I say that at the beginning, those are roles. Those are characters. But who's behind the role? And that's what this piece, I'm Your Huckleberry Finn, has always been meant to explore. And so when I'm looking at the newspaper article about my show in 2024, and I see underneath there's in the A&E section in the Times newspaper, you can see an article about Kevin Hart winning the Mark Twain Prize. Just super odd that all those things, those little things, they happen so often that you really couldn't keep track of them if you wanted to try, because I do, trust me, I'm almost obsessive about it. But it doesn't take away from the notion that they're little miracles of flashes of light in our life. And I think you can focus on them, expect them to happen more, be grateful for those things. And that's the magic of expecting synchronicity. Like I've said, that the gratitude is the philosopher's stone, is what I believe. The philosopher's stone, is how we alchemize a base material or a base experience into gold. So we find the grace of allowing serendipity and just being grateful moves our life forward. My thesis, my theory on this is that serendipity is the golden ratio making itself known through the space-time experience of our lives. I think that synchronicity can be measured as the divine proportion over our past, present, and future. That if we were able to graph time on a spiral cone, that we would see that it lands like we would be able to look at it. If you don't know about the golden ratio, it's going to take too long for me to go here, divine proportion. But the basic concept behind that is if you take a line and the proportion, you divide a line into two parts, where the long part is divided by the short part, it equals the whole length divided by the long part. Yes, it sounds crazy. If you look at Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, it is showing us how the golden ratio, the divine proportion, is articulated in the human body. Essentially, we see it all over nature. I mean, in the conch shell, the spiral, and the patterns of leaves and the way the human body is organized. So why wouldn't we expect it to appear over space-time? But have we actually tried to measure it? That's where I believe if we did, we would call that serendipity. We would see Carl Jung's golden scarab falling precisely on that spiral graphed over a cone. So as I'm working on this piece, I'm Your Huckleberry Finn, I stumble on another writing by Neville Goddard, who is one of my favorites, but I had not read this before. But he's saying, God is within you. Remember, I'm talking about masks. I'm talking about a song and a lyric that I wrote that wound up in this piece, I'm Your Huckleberry Finn, that I had written 24 years prior, 25 years prior, when it says, and I quoted this in the last episode, again, you can see it, jjweinberg.com/HuckFinn with one N. It says, there I go again, and I'm a whisper in the wind. I close my eye and try to find the place where we begin. The face I pretend to wear is but a trace of who I am. You ask who I'm singing of. Love, it's both me and him. And in that regard, I was saying that me and him is me and the dreamer. Me and my God self, the one seen through the many. It could be me and Christ. It could be me and Val. It could be me and, or Val and Doc, or Val and Mark Twain. It's not a personal me. It's the larger versions of I am and me. And so Neville Goddard, I'm reading this serendipitously, right as I'm getting in the finishing phases of the piece. It was like a month before I was finally done after working on the piece for over, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And it says, God is within you. When I say that God became man, that man could become God, I mean that imagination became you and that you became all imagination. See, we get so caught up on that word God. And that's, again, we get hung up because of religion, because of dogma. And as I've said before, dogma is where I feel like religion often gets the idea of God wrong. Now, I mean, religion actually means to realign. Religario, realign. That's, in other words, to get back into your God state, your God self, to take off the mask, to say who I am behind the mask. But we say God, and people automatically shut off because they think we mean something like the Crusades or some sort of perverted religion. But here he's saying, I mean that you become all imagination. And then he carries on, he says, becoming aware, you begin to remember. And remembering, you turn around and come out of the very play in which you sent yourself. I mean, I'm already hair standing on end on my arms. The very play in which you sent yourself, this was again from the dream, 25, 26 years prior. This is what I'm talking about, the play that Val saw himself in. The Mark Twain, Citizen Twain, the idea that they're using Carl Jung dream analysis to even construct a play. Life is a stage, William Shakespeare. So you turn around and come out of the very play in which you sent yourself. Having conceived the play, you are playing every part. I mean, this is me reading this 25 years after the lyric I just told you. At the end of the verse, the last verse of the song, it changes to, there we go again, and we're a whisper in the wind, because now we've become collective, we become whole. We close our we to try and find the truth of God within. The face we pretend to wear is but a trace of who we are, and they ask who we're singing of, and we laugh because they forgot their part. And right here, 25 years later, a month away from finishing this piece that I'd been working on for 3 years, talking about the play in which I saw myself auditioning for myself. This goes back a couple of episodes of Dream, where I'm auditioning, but I'm also the screenwriter, the director, all of these things. And then I read Neville Goddard say, having conceived the play, you are playing every part. For in the end, we will all know that we are God. This is exactly what the piece is saying. And I'm reading it summarized by one of my favorite authors a month before I finished the piece. I can't even, it still gets me. Then you will hate no one, for you will realize that we agreed to play all the parts while hiding behind the masks. While completely masked, we think we are many and do not recognize ourselves as the one who conceived and predicted the play of life. When the play is finished, you turn around and return to the very being you were in the beginning. We're all wearing masks in order to play this play called life. When looking at a seeming other, you're looking at yourself. One you will remember when all the masks are removed. I mean, I just can't even believe that I was reading him say the exact same stuff I'd been saying for that long, that verbatim. It's phenomenal. Go back a couple episodes and get to this and you'd be like, that's what I wrote. No, this is Neville Goddard writing completely independent of me, probably 60 years prior or more. I don't even know when he wrote this. And it goes on. Imagination is playing all the parts. You imagining are God. The universe is the imagination creating while it's fast asleep in the dream state. There's only God that is playing all the parts. And in the end, you will know that you are light. Like a real man standing in the sun. It's again one of the lyrics in this song. So finish the play and become awakened. In the beginning, we dreamed this world into being. Then we went our separate ways to falling into different states of consciousness. Now disguised as the mask which God wears, you can no longer see who you really are. But the being you see behind the mask who created the play is playing every part. One day, that being will take off the mask and you will resurrect. You will know that you were never the mask you wore. Dream consciously, dream deliberately, for this is a dream world. So this points us back to the portrait is just the mask. All of this stemmed because the AI, I just started listening to the whisper in the wind about this again because of this reality that Val is going to be the first actor in human history to appear posthumously as an artificial intelligence avatar, basically. And it set me on this path for the last couple of episodes because I'm like, man, I was already talking about this stuff 5 and 6 years ago. I even found some of the videos from my old podcasts, like just some of them are just raw videos of me on Facebook talking about these things. And the notion that we're in this really precarious place where I was talking about deep fakes. It was 2020 and I was talking about deep fakes and I was saying, we're going to like, goodbye. We're not going to know. I said, just watch sometime here in the near future. It's going to be, oh, I didn't really say that. It's fake. Someone made that up. And we won't know what to believe. And I was watching the newest season of The Boys. And if you haven't seen it, slight spoiler alert here. Actually, I won't even say what it is. But basically, I'm watching it. And as soon as I saw this turn happen, I was like, oh, no. I'm like, they're literally the next thing they're going to say is that it was AI. Just watch. And about 2 minutes later, whatever it was, 30 seconds later even maybe, they're like, oh, no, it was AI. That wasn't real. And I'm like, man, I was talking about this 6 years ago. And here it is. And it's so weird that Val, of all people, is the first to have his avatar. And again, that was something I talked about. If you go back a couple episodes where I was talking about the Tom Cruise cube, you can find more on that here. But I'm searching through dreams from 25, 26 years, this piece. I'm trying to articulate everything I've been saying in the last 3 or 4 episodes. And then it kind of revisits me again, even after this piece has been done. And I mean, I still wear this dog tag on my neck. You know, it has the circumpunct on it, the Egyptian symbol of Ra in the middle of this reflecting dog God word, the divine center, creation point, the hermetic alchemy representing gold, the perfect state, the philosopher's center, the Jungian monad self, totality of psyche, the indivisible center of being. It's all here. Hindu, what is it? The Bindu dot within the circle, the origin of the universe, the point from which all creation expands, singular consciousness. All of this, I'm trying to talk about technology and spirit. Val says, I don't believe in death. And the blockchain I use as an allegory for the Akashic record, for the tree of life, digital permanence. I recreated Val's voice for my project with AI in 2023, I think it was. 24 was when I released it. And so it's the same thing, but it's not just one coincidence. It's like a star chart. I'm looking up and not seeing random points. I'm seeing constellations, and those connect to other constellations. And it's like a dream and a dream and a dream, like Inception. And you fast forward, and I'm sitting in a bar in Northwest Indiana next to Marty and Doc. Well, Doc, not yet, but Doc was on Marty's phone. Just the notion of Marty and Doc, I have a real strong serendipitous and artistic appreciation for Back to the Future. But anyway, I'm having this conversation with Marty. I remember the day. There's so many things that happened I could tell you, but I'm running out of time. But I just remember this day. I'll always remember this day because it's the day that I found out that we were going to get all the financing that we need from some backers for the building for Silver Stray and Gary. And Silver, there it is. I don't even know if it was dawning on me right now, but this is one of the ones I can tell you about because I was looking on my phone at one point in time that day, and I see this meme about Eminem, and they're saying that Eminem is showing people that there are words that rhyme with silver. And people are saying there's no word in the English language that rhymes with silver. And I'm looking at Eminem's tweet back, and it says Val Kilmer inside of the tweet. Now, mind you, I'm at the bar sitting next to Marty, and we're talking about artwork. And he's showing me his stuff, and I'm like, oh man, this is great. And I start to show him some of my stuff. He's like, wow, this is amazing. And then he shows me this sculpture that he did. And it's Mark Twain. I'm seeing this in the bar after reading Val Kilmer and Silver from Eminem earlier, talking about getting all of this financing for Silver Stray. And I walked into the library. I saw this book, The Women with Silver Wings. There's just so many things to say that added up. Just like that Anthony Hopkins, the girl from Petrovka. Just like the Carl Jung Golden Scarab. And so I'm seeing this, and I had all these notes already ready for the show that I wanted to record about the AI digital actor because I was hearing that Val was going to be the first actor in human history to be represented fully as AI in this film From the Grave. Again, the title of the film. What are we talking about? This is crazy, right? So I'm looking at this guy's art. He doesn't look like an artist. He's an older dude. He's like a carpenter, but he's showing me his stuff. He's overwhelmed, saying like just how inspired he is by my art. I'm inspired by what he's showing me. And he shows me, again, this sculpture of Mark Twain. And I'm just like, what is going on? My hair is like standing on end. And while he's showing me, I'm looking at my phone because I'm getting ready to show him. I'm like, wait a second. I've got an image of Mark Twain, and it's about this Val Kilmer. It's from this piece, and I got to show it to him. And then right as I'm getting ready to show him, I see a phone call coming in from the people who are backing the Silver Stray project. And I would have maybe missed it. I mean, I still would have got the call at some point, but like I might have missed it in that moment. So I'm like, wait a second, I got to step out. But I show him my Mark Twain piece first. And then I go to step out. And again, Silver Stray, if you're not familiar, go to silverstray.org. Of course, it's about cats, but in large part, it's also about dogs. And Francis, my dog, the man's best friend, the reflection of dogma, says, am God. All of these things are just pouring out and connecting. And so I'm talking to him. Then when I come back in, I'm super pumped. I'm like, oh my God, we have this landed. It's amazing. We're going to get the first part. Firstly, they're donating a huge amount of money. Secondly, they're just loaning us so I don't even have to go through a bank the rest of what we need to purchase the building, and then we'll pay them back. Just incredible, right? And I'm finding this out because I'm looking at all of this stuff happening in real time. And I show him the Mark Twain piece on mine. And as he's scrolling through his phone, I then see him scroll by a picture of Doc Holliday on his phone. I'm like, no way. What are you talking about? This is absolutely crazy. I show him first, of course, my Mark Twain. Val is, Mark Twain. And then I show him from the piece, from the multimedia etherealization triptych, I'm Your Huckleberry Finn. I show him the image that I did of Val as Doc Holliday. Like, how is this even possible? It just gets so overwhelming, and I can only hope that my art somehow carries this forward, because it gets a little maddening. You see it happen in my book, Serendipity According to Francis. It's like I'm trying to articulate a constellation while I'm inside of the sky. And I think it was the next day I had said to Tony, parlance. I said, parlance is my parlance. Because somebody had said, I don't know, what is parlance? I said, say it in your own parlance. I don't know what parlance means. And I was like, that's hilarious. Parlance is my parlance. Parlance is a way of speaking. And I realized that my way of speaking, I use the word parlance. So I sent the text just by itself to my friend Tony, and I said, parlance is my parlance. And he laughed and said, that's amazing. Who is that from? And I said, well, that's me. I just said that. And he says, well, you're in good company, because I was going to guess that it was either Doc Holliday or Mark Twain. Again, all in real time. And then on April 5th, I'm at the gym. It just keeps going. I'm back in my life. I'm doing my thing. I hit the wrong song on accident. I'm on my playlist. I remember I was like scurrying because I'm on this real specific timeline for when I'm on my workouts. And I just had to like fumble through, and I accidentally hit the wrong song. A Bob Ross Happy Accident. And the song that plays is Animals. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Animals. And if you look at the cover for Animals, it's a V on the cover. The V for 5 for Maroon 5. That's playing on April 5th, but the V is also for Val, and the V is also for Vendetta. I, like God, do not play with dice and don't believe in coincidence. And the Animals. I was talking to my friend Bart that morning, and he sent me a message about this rabbi. It was Easter morning. And so I looked at the word rabbi, and it was really weird to me that I did never connect the rabbi, because I follow the rabbit. I talked about it here, the seduction of the rabbit. Alice, it's in my book, Serendipity According to Francis. Following the white rabbit, Neo follows the rabbit. And I saw for the first time, right before I went in and accidentally played this song, rabbi with a T is rabbit. And it's this weird notion of the Easter bunny, right? And then the idea that the rabbi and the cross makes Jesus the rabbit. I don't know what that means, but I know that with V for Vendetta, the V that's there, that's on this album cover that I accidentally played this song, it's the mask. It's what is this role we're acting about, what this piece is about, what this life is about, being on a stage and realizing that I am the actor behind the character. And I am the screenwriter, and this is a dream, and you are the dreamer. So the song Animals is playing. And I think, again, the Dogma, Am God, Man's Best Friend, all of this stuff is still a reflection of things that I was already working on and got derailed by about 2 or 3 months ago for things that I wanted to talk about here on the show. And now it's going to come back full circle. Connected through a chain of events of serendipity and lucidity, and the actor has a special place in reminding us of our true nature. The actor takes on a character, he puts on a mask and says, I am. Follow the trail of breadcrumbs of serendipity in your life, dig a little deeper, and then ask, who am I when I remove the mask? Who's behind this role I play? Until next time, that's my piece. Peace.
Reflect on your dogma and see that I am God.
Perception is reality. Perspective shapes the world around you. I'm JJ Weinberg. And this is my perspective.